Afternoon. My name is Omari Salisbury at ConvergeMedia. We're actually broadcasting to you live from our studios here. And I don't know, it's the CHAZ, it's the CHOP. I think we got some experts over here today who also might be able to let us know. It's a rapidly changing, fluid environment here on Capitol Hill. But just tell you guys briefly what's going on here, and I'll pass it over to Chief Scoggins. So basically, Converge, our role is here is that clearly we've been streaming a lot of stuff here, and the community was having a meeting and wanted to be able to bring some transparency. Clearly, you can't get 500 or 1,000 people inside of a place a lot of times. So you have some voices that have emerged here that are meeting with the chief. The chief has come with representative from public utilities. We also have people representing small business here and security here. Just want to be clear, we did not put this meeting together. These guys put the meeting together, but what they did ask to do is to be able to stream it. Our position here at ConvergeMedia, as we say all the time, we're not with the protesters, we're not with the city, we're not with organization or anything else, just a media company that happens to find itself in the middle of this storm, kind of like everybody else probably in this room. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Chief Scoggins, and I think maybe people might introduce themselves or whatever. But, the floor is yours, Chief.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for agreeing to this follow-up conversation on the conversation that we had yesterday. And as people may see, we're all wearing masks. It's a reminder that we are in the middle of a pandemic, and that's really important that we stop the spread of COVID-19. And I will do a plug, and I will let you know that we have 2 community testing sites open, one on Aurora and one in Soto, where anyone that's in the community can get tested. And all you have to do is go to seattle.gov/COVID-19. But that's why we're all wearing masks. It's very important.
So we'll do a round of introductions, and then we'll get grounded a bit in the conversations from yesterday, and then we'll figure out how we move forward today. So we'll start with some introductions.
Hi, I'm Cove, representing the CHOP security team.
Hi, I'm Mami Hara. I'm General Manager of Seattle Public Utilities.
Sam Zimbabwe. I'm the Director of the Seattle Department of Transportation.
Ron Amundsen, representing the property owners with Amundsen Property and the rest of the neighbors.
Carmen O'Toole, representing local businesses within the CHAZ or CHOP or whatever one is to call.
Chai Adira, I'm a general organizer and live streamer.
Marcus Henderson, I'm representing the guarding operations here in CHAZ CHOP.
Hi, I'm Shannon, and I've been here since the beginning and was helping use the 24/7 protest line.
I'm Bobby Stills. I'll just be here representing Converge, just make sure everything goes smoothly, okay?
I'm Tracy Rector. I'm a local organizer and filmmaker, and I'm the executive director of Longhouse Media, which is in the Northwest Film Forum building.
So thank you all for convening again for this conversation. And the way we started off the conversation yesterday is I led with a number of things that have already been done or are moving forward. And I want to give a brief recap of that. And then I want to talk about what generated the conversation, because that's tied to just general public safety and concern of the residents and the business owners in the community. I have a number of copies that I'll leave with you, so I'll give you guys copies of this, but I'll just cover the highlights of some of the things that have already been done. Additional resources and more transparency in officer discipline. There's a paragraph that ties to that, and you guys will have a copy of that. Review of SPD crowd management policies. There's a paragraph tied to that, and you guys will have that. Ban the use of tear gas and less lethal as crowd control management tactics unless in life-threatening situations. You'll have copies of that, and then we can talk about that. The National Guard has now been redeployed. I talked about that yesterday, so they are now gone. No filing of criminal charges against the protesters. There's a paragraph tied to that one also. Preserve the CHOP. And yesterday it was a different name, but I'll just commonly refer to it as 12th and Pine in the general vicinity. Additional requiring body-worn cameras recording at protests. That's a change that has been made. Consent decree, to push pause on the consent decree. 2016 Campaign Zero and SPD's use of force policies. So that's going to start to be in the works. Requiring the display of officer name and badge number. That policy has already been implemented, and there's more steps to make it permanent. Statewide independent investigation for officers who use deadly force. So that's already moving forward. So these are a lot of steps forward. In no way do I imagine that this comes close to meeting all of the concerns and needs, and that's why we're here to have the conversation. But in the conversation, one of the things we're trying to do is understand how we serve the business owners, how do we serve the residents, while making sure all of you are in a safe place as we continue to unfold this. Now, what I heard yesterday is the building is the center of this, and I get that. The building is the message. But I believe the systematic change is what the ask is. How do we reshape that? So those were the issues I covered yesterday. I'll leave this with some of you. And what drove us here is how do we reshape the footprint around this area to support all that are tied to this area while maintaining that message being delivered and committing and continuing the ongoing conversations. So that's where we are, and I'll pass the mic to, maybe I'll pass it to Sam, because what we committed to yesterday is we would come back with some different footprints that everyone will have a chance to view, we can talk through, and then we have a conversation over that. How about I give you that?
Sure. Thanks, Chief. So I can distribute a couple things. I've got a couple of copies. I don't have one for everybody, so maybe if you take one and pass it out. It's a 3-sheet set of things. So yeah, that's one copy. That's one. That's one. That's another. This is a third. And I got one more for us over here. So this I've got. Yeah, if we can. Yeah. So this is a couple of things, and before you start flipping through, let me just go give a little overview first. The first sheet, the cover sheet, the area-wide map shows the whole neighborhood and shows where the new mural is, right by the park, and then where the East Precinct is, just so we have a grounding of where the overall community is. And then there's 2 options for sort of a reduced footprint for a protest zone. When we talked yesterday, we talked about our desire to have emergency vehicle ingress and egress, and also the need for residents and businesses to access driveways and storefronts and things like that. We also talked about the importance of maintaining a protest zone and an area where protests can continue to happen. So what this shows, this is a zoomed in layout of these couple of blocks going on the left-hand side of the page from 10th Avenue and Nagel, all the way up on the right-hand side to 12th Avenue. And the precinct is sort of at the bottom right corner. Yeah, the precinct is right where it says, on that, it's sort of at that right-hand corner. And Pine, it's centered on Pine. What the blue barriers show in this are areas that would be closed, sort of open for pedestrians, open for protest, open for anybody to access. And then the thicker barriers are where there's closures for vehicles. So there's 2 different options. I think the chief expressed yesterday the desire to make sure that emergency vehicles have access everywhere. That's option 2. And then option 3 shows a slightly modified version of that connects from the park up to the precinct. All of these, both of these, maintain access for all of the driveways and vehicular access points where residents and businesses need to access. The make and composition of any barriers is another place where we can have a discussion. We wanted to try to translate what we had talked about a little bit yesterday into a map that we could look at and have a discussion about. So I'll stop with an introduction there, unless anybody else wants to say anything else before we get there. Okay.
Any thoughts?
So I'm looking at option 2, and just from my experience with safety here, to me, I look at this and it looks like a kill zone for cars to run into, for people to come out and arrest, and active shooters. So I just think option 2 is probably automatically off the table. Option 3, looks more like something to start talking about.
It's kind of important to mention like the reason this is so important, and we have a couple of representatives from the community here to talk about this also. But the current state of our borders is making a lot of fire safety and like life safety issues for the residents and stuff. And honestly, the way I'm looking at this is I've never heard of a protest that was working directly hand in hand with the city, that was being given thousands of dollars of infrastructure from the city. So I think if we can find a way to continue our protest but be in some kind of communication and some kind of agreement with the city, it will get us a really long way. It'll make it so this protest can last a lot longer and be much more sustainable. And it'll honestly, as far as optics go, it'll look very good to be working alongside the city and the fire department with our protest. There's been a lot of talk of separatist movement and a lot of talk of Antifa, and if we're working directly with Department of Transportation and Public Utilities, it's going to be really hard to say that we're separatists.
Thank you, Co. I totally agree.
Oh, it's on your foot.
Well, thank you, Chief. I felt that I needed to at least say a few things since I am a stakeholder. I'm representing the property owners and myself and other property owners. And we really want to see if we can preserve the issues that are at stake, but we don't want to lose our neighborhood. And there are a few things that maybe you have already discussed, but this easily could get out of control. And we obviously none of us want that. So I applaud you for being involved and looking for solutions where we can all come to a fairly quick resolution. I think that we're running out of time, because if we don't make those decisions will be made for us, either by force or just uncontrollable circumstances. When it comes to fire life and safety, that's a big concern of mine. We have a lot of people that were climbing the roofs, given access to the roofs, and I just envision somebody falling or an active shooter. That could happen, and this whole thing will blow up right in our face. So I think the idea of regrouping and allowing fire access and the other services access, I think is a big step, and I think that you're on the right track in trying to partner and find some common ground here. So I just believe that we can all work together here and turn this into something good. I have business owners who want to open but are afraid to open. I have property owners that don't want to speak out because of retaliation. And so everyone is scared, and we need to give them confidence. There's a lot of misreporting, and that we need to be very careful, because this could be hijacked by bad actors, and then decisions will be made for us, and we don't want that. I think this is a local matter. I think we need to keep it local, and I really appreciate you, Chief. Appreciate your help.
Yes, also would like...
No, you and then him.
Okay. Also would like to echo the community is really appreciating you, Chief. Thank you. When I look at these maps, my first thought is I'm only representing businesses, and so my own opinions are not important. What people keep telling me is they want through traffic safety, they want garbage easily to come through and out, they want Uber drivers to be able to go through easily in and out. option number 2 is definitely has easier through traffic. It still protects the pedestrians. There will be one issue where we have to make sure people can cross safely right on 11th Avenue, but otherwise that has the most through traffic, and it doesn't block off, say, some of the businesses up on 12th, or that for me, I see best through traffic for option 2, which is something that's very important. We also really don't want anyone getting hit by a car. I do fear some crazy who's against the movement coming in and just plowing into everybody. That is a very big concern. And I'm sure that's a very big concern of yours as well. Your goal is to have nobody be hurt. And my goal is to have nobody be hurt and have the businesses survive. I prefer option 2 for business survival. Option 3 I'm not even sure if it's safer, because if people are on the outside here, they could still get hit. I still think option 2 would be better for safety.
Marcus? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say one piece. I think thinking about how people will cross the street. Right now, we've got the signals on Pine flashing red lights, so they're acting like a stop sign. We would anticipate, as long as there is this type of activity, this number of people, we would leave the signals operating in that way, so that it really is a mixed zone of people and cars, even if we reintroduce traffic to some of these streets, because people would have to stop. There wouldn't be sort of green lights where somebody's building up speed.
Marcus?
I would say, I hear everything everyone's saying, and I completely agree. I think creating a sense of safety in this area is extremely important. And I would say, just kind of looking at the way this place has been operating the last few days, there are a lot of people coming through here and feeling safe. Like, I've been in the garden, and I've had a lot of people come to me and say, I've heard a lot of misinformation about this place, and this is not that. I feel safe. I feel welcome. I feel like I can explore this conversation in a way that is accessible. And that's been in the garden space. And I just want to speak to the idea and the beauty of planting and gardening and connecting to nature. There are a lot of people in this area a lot of people who've come here have felt that connection. With that being said, I think bringing more cars back into this area, again, brings the risk of interactions between cars and people. And there's a lot of conversation in many cities of talking about giving the city streets back to pedestrians and creating pedestrian streets. And the beauty that brings to the businesses, when people feel safe and that they can hang out in a street near a business, it actually brings a lot of business, because now you have crowds of people outside of your business who are pulled in instead of cars. So I think I think these designs look great. I think, but allowing through traffic could bring danger, and also maybe not actually increase the business's business, So I think we can do a lot to create an open city street market type design, which would be helpful.
Her right next to you. Hey, really quick, Marcus, if I could just comment on that. Usually when those streets are driving pedestrian traffic through it, I've been in a lot of cities all over the country that do that. It's a planned transition. The gap here is there hasn't been a planned transition, and the way the community has been designed, that's this strange space we're in right now. So I hear what you're saying. I've been in a lot of those cities, and I do understand that perspective. I'm sorry.
I agree that the egress issues are a local matter, but I want to highlight that systemic racism is a national matter. I also want to highlight that public safety is a social contract that has been violated for really, if you look at it, several hundred years, and that contracts that are negotiated under duress are void by the legal system. And I would like to highlight that all of us are currently under duress. We are scared for our lives, literally. And I just want that to be respected when we're marinating on the timeline for the solution about this problem. And then to speak to that point, what is the timeline, that the community, the businesses, and the residents are looking for while we negotiate these egress issues, while understanding that in order to end systemic racism. We all are responsible for weaponizing the privilege we're exposed to. And I would encourage, if you want it to be quicker, weaponize the privilege you're exposed to, because, my goodness, it speeds it up.
Hi, I'm speaking as a nonprofit leader that's had a business here for 13 years, also as a Seattle Arts Commissioner. And I'd just like to make a point of reference that whenever these meetings happen, it's essential to recognize that we're on Duwamish territory. You must always open these meetings with that responsibility in hand, especially being a representative of the city. And secondly, in terms of protocol, in terms of this movement, Black, Indigenous, and POC voices need to go first, not white business owners, landowners, etc.
No, I should have led with that, so I apologize for that. Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify a little bit. Seattle is very interracial, eclectic. Business owners come in all colors and sizes and ages, and we have. I'll just give you one example. Freddie at Rancho Bravo Tacos, right here next door to us. He has decided to stay open, and I think that he's providing a good service. He's hosting the medic team, and we're helping with the parking. And Freddie started with nothing. He's a Mexican-American guy, started with a little food truck. He's providing jobs and support to the community. And so I think that, my hope is that we can get back to normal, and we all love our community. I understand that we have these issues, but I don't, I'm looking at it from wanting to get back to normal, not to ignore the issues. Those issues have to be addressed and they have to be changed. If there was no problem, we wouldn't have this problem. So we know that things have to change, and I'm supporting that. But if we don't do something, for example, in this building right here, 8 people moved out today. And others are moving out of the 12th Arts building. The others are moving out of. You're losing support. We are losing support, and things are getting misreported. So, I think if we're going to be successful with changes that need to happen, I support this idea for several reasons. It does provide safety that everyone needs, but it also will show people who are watching that it'll show that you're interested in finding solutions. So I think if you do this, you'll find extra support. There has to be movement on both sides.
I'd like to ask what normal is, because I feel like that's an oxymoron. I feel like you really didn't hear what this protest is about, because I would encourage you to look in the mirror and ask yourself what normal is, and then, reflect on what we've all been through. BIPOC, we cannot escape the conditions of what we were born in. We can't escape that. And I understand that the residents, and I'm empathetic that everybody's tired, but I think we're all really tired of being told that systematic change is going to happen, and we're tired of waiting for tomorrow, and we're ready for tomorrow to be today.
Thank you. And just to speak to the issue of people being displaced, what about the thousands of African Americans that have been displaced from this area because white business owners come here and try and make a buck? So to have this conversation to be about economic justice for white business owners is backwards. This is about economic justice for black people in this community. And so we really need to balance this conversation in terms about moving quickly to support business owners when there's a larger issue here. And I'm willing to have the conversation of safety, but just be careful with the language you're using.
And yesterday that was the focus, is trying to ground the conversation in safety for fire and EMS. We know that work needs to be done, but we're trying to figure out a way to make sure everyone's safe. Just like all of you have a concern about a vehicle coming through here, that's one of my greatest concerns. Just like you all have a concern about someone doing something really, really bad to the people on the ground, that's one of my greatest concerns. Just like you have a concern of a person having a heart attack on the second floor of one of these apartment buildings and we can't get in, those are very real experiences for me. I know what that reality is. I know what the time-based responses are based on science, the rate of spread on fire if we can't get in. All those are very real. So I hear you. That wasn't the point of this conversation, because we know those conversations need to take place. And my commitment to all of you is I'm willing to be a part of helping find a solution. But the conversation today we were trying to ground ourselves in was public safety for the protesters, for the residents, and the businesses. That's where I want to reground us.
I just want to add one thing to this, and it's kind of like we've been talking about. I'm talking about the privilege of courage. I want everyone to know that just because the representative for the residents is a white person and because the representative for the businesses is a white person, that doesn't mean that they are representing white people. Many of the residents in this community are people of color. Almost all of the business owners in this community are people of color. I can only think of one business on this block that isn't owned by a person of color. So let's get that straight. The privilege of courage is a thing. A lot of these people are afraid to speak out because they're people of color. So please don't take these people's words as the words of just white people. They're representing people of color. Thank you. I think that's really all I have.
I'd just like to say one thing, that this is just probably one of many conversations, and I don't think that we should feel the pressure to resolve all conversations in this conversations. You know that the chief and I and Sam have been here every day and will continue to show up and we'll continue to have conversations. And I would surely appreciate if we could focus on the physical configuration of how to coexist well. It would be much, much appreciated if we could stay there and we can have the next conversation in the same format, if that's okay.
Yes, I think that's great. I just want to remind people, just language is important. Just check the privilege, check the language, and let's have a constructive conversation from there. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
Choose next to you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Carmen. We'll get you next.
Would you want to go? You haven't spoken.
I was just thinking in terms of solutions and whatnot. I know when I first showed up, it was a Friday night. Just a lot of disorganization, and now looking at what it has become, each and every day there's more organization, and conversation is definitely necessary. I know that right now the barricades that are built are mostly made up of remnants from the police barricades, and they were, I heard, already not safe to begin with when they were built. They were misbuilt. So in terms of going forward, we should definitely think about, semi-permanent or, even temporary fencing structures that can be opened, latched shut, whatnot, so then we can have, we're not just dragging big pieces of plastic with metal across, and figuring out something that's more safe. Also, I was thinking, we're building security teams, medical teams. Is there a volunteer fire team that we need to think about, or would you guys be comfortable having an outpost that we could help you with? I know we've used some funds allocated to buy fire extinguishers and leave them in certain places. Yeah.
So there's a couple things there. I want to circle back to. One, there's no timeline for this. I want to make sure I put that on the table. We're not looking to come out of here with, whatever the answer is. We're just looking to try to move the conversation forward. On the safe place piece, and I know fear is a big part of that, and that's been acknowledged already. You know, one of my beliefs is if we can move past fear, we can get into creative thinking. It's hard for us to get into creative thinking on what it should be as long as we're in the fight or flight mode. So if we can create a safe space and create ongoing conversations on what it should be, then we can start to really transition and visualize what the future could be. So that's a part of this conversation.
All right, guys, listen, we're going to take a quick 50-second break and bathroom, water, all that stuff, and we'll come back. And that's a good point to stop. 50 seconds.
Huh. I'm a young black man doing all that I can to stand. Oh, but when I look around and I see what's being done to my kind, every day I'm being hunted as prey. My people don't want no trouble. We've had enough struggle. I just wanna live. God protect me. I just wanna live. I just wanna live.
I think it was going to you.
Okay, so I have lists of things that the local businesses have asked me to bring up, and I'm going to keep it to the physical because that is the most important thing that we're dealing with right now. When it comes to the physical things, a lot of people are concerned about maintenance. How do we get road repair if something needs to be fixed? There was a gas leak, like they need to have really quick access. What if somebody had smoked a cigarette and caught something on fire in that moment? People are afraid for their physical safety. The blockades are hampering a lot of deliveries, early morning deliveries for the restaurants, or the Uber Eats people can go in and out. We're in the middle of a pandemic that is devastating businesses, and especially restaurants. People are losing thousands of dollars a day. And yes, I know lives are not as important as money, or the opposite. The opposite. But we need to make it so that the community doesn't die. We need to make it so the community doesn't die. They're struggling, and they're afraid to come in. People are evacuating, not just because, oh my goodness, there's a loud party, but also because what happens if there's a medical emergency? Stroke, every second is brain when it comes to a stroke. I know this. I'm very familiar with that. And so we need to be able to have EMTs get through the barricades. I was negotiating until 2 a.m. last night. I've been out every single night, every single day since this all started, trying to negotiate so that we can get things like the blockades open just enough to have an emergency vehicle come in. And it's a constant battle. That's something that we need to be able to have. We are concerned about a number of things. I mean, I'm not even going to get into the guns. If we're just keeping it to the barriers, we need to be able to make it so the businesses can survive. They need deliveries and they need pickup regularly. That means through traffic.
So I just can I respond briefly and then I'll pass it along. These two options that we've laid out based on conversations so far make access to all buildings and businesses that are necessary. I think this is a way to open up enough to create a protest area, a preserved protest area, and to be able to create and work with and discuss how to make that separation between street and protest area. We've seen what's happened with art at 12th and Pike. There's ways to sort of incorporate some of that same artistic intent into an edge like is shown here. What would be very helpful for me and our work on the transportation side is to get feedback on this area and any concerns or sort of places that are also important if we haven't captured all of those, and sort of try to understand where and how to take this the next step further.
The only thing I'd like to add to your statement, Carmen, there's a slight disconnect with the barriers where I want to be known while we're on a public forum that the security team isn't actually turning away drivers' deliveries. What's happening is they're coming, they're seeing the barricade, feeling unsafe, and immediately turning around. I heard from a dispatcher that dispatch is telling people to not even come to this area. So it's not that we're stopping people saying, hey, get out of here. It's the image is that it's blocked and they shouldn't come in. Anyone that pulls up, we're like, hey, you're here for something? Cool, come on in. And I would just like to let that be known on this public forum. So yes, it is an issue because cars are turning around, but I just want it to be known that we're not physically turning cars around. It's still a problem.
Yeah, my question is for, your name is Carmen, was it? Okay, you said you've been here every day negotiating with who? And you said you were negotiating to try and open up the barricades enough to get emergency vehicles in. Who are you negotiating with?
The people at the barricades.
Because I'm just confused because there's never been any negotiation. It's just been open communication. Since the first day that this happened, I talked to Fire Chief Scoggins. We have a plethora of our text thread is lively. We talk every day, and immediately when it happened, he said, "Hey, we just need to make sure we get egress and ingress here, and we have enough space for fire truck and EMT to come in." I asked, "How much space do we need?" He said, "It's about 9 feet wide, so 13 feet is good." I was like, "Yeah, for sure." It's never been a negotiation. This isn't a hostile takeover. We're just communicating and just making it happen. We didn't even want the precinct. They just offered it to us. We were just trying to picket signs around it and protest. That's all it's been. So that's weird to me because immediately the first day we already made sure that we took the barricades down enough so that vehicles could fit through and do their thing.
Yesterday, the barricade that's on 11th and Olive was too narrow to have a truck go through, which means it's way too narrow to have an emergency vehicle go through. It took about 20 minutes of talking them into moving it just 2 feet wider.
So could we focus on the future?
Yeah, because I don't think there's no problem. We're all here. We all want the best.
I think this conversation go on a long time. People have been working hard on all sides on this. So let's look at the alternatives. Let's talk about the specifics and try to come to consensus, which is the goal of this meeting. So would you? Okay, so Shannon first, then Crystals, and then Tracy. Do you have your hand up? Okay.
What I'm hearing and what I've been observing these last few days is that the steel barricades are kind of expensive, and what I'm hearing is that they're a bargaining chip. Now, we were heard, like that's what they are. You guys want them back because they're expensive. What if we split the funds to do what Chai was suggesting, and then split it with the community to help with the businesses and the cleanup project? What if we did something like that? Just throwing ideas out there.
Let me answer that. We're not viewing any of those different types of barriers as bargaining chips. I'm trying to ground the conversation in access and egress for public safety deployment. Mm-hmm. Now, whether we redeploy them in a different configuration or we bring other ones in, I'm not looking at them as a bargaining trip. It's my job to focus on public safety in the area of fire and EMS for the city of Seattle.
Thank you for that.
If we weren't here, I would be somewhere else trying to work through that. That's my whole goal.
Thank you.
So, one temporary solution that there was a donation station we set up over on 11th and Pike, generally near the Vermilion. People would drop off donations and whatnot. We would have a car parked out front where we could move it. Also, there was at I think the WeWorks building, there was a team of about 30 construction workers that would show up each morning at about 6 a.m. and we had a personal agreement with them where their chief or whatever he is, the foreman, he would come out and help us put out the cars, or we'd get their make and model and let them in. And that was just one temporary solution. And if we could build off something like that for other businesses and local people.
The only thing I was going to add to, we were talking about the barricades and the price of the barricades and is that a bargaining chip? They're offering us like multiple thousands of dollars in infrastructure to make this work. They're being super lenient and super generous and giving us options to make the protest continue to work and to keep the protest safe. So we should take that into account.
So, I heard a couple things, and I want to keep us grounded in where we are right now, because some of the things I heard is we're asking people why they're coming in. We're getting the make and model of their license plate. Now, no matter how that's viewed, 2 weeks ago, the residents and businesses used to be able to drive home or drive to their business without that occurring. So that is viewed as, whatever the terminology is, that it wasn't 2 weeks ago. So that's the feedback that we're getting. So I think that if we can figure this out and reshape this, that'll start to change. Go ahead.
Can I just get a list of the issues from that side, more so from like Carmen and the city side? If there are any issues, can we get the list of it? There should never be anyone checking license plates or asking people for their ID. That shouldn't be happening. So that's misorganization, I think, or whoever was standing there that thought that was the thing to do. But if we had a list of all of the issues, do we have it listed out somewhere? I think it would be cool if it was on a packet, so that way we can meet them and make it better. I was taught by my mom, always leave a place better than when you found it. So that's how we want to do this. If we're staying here, we want it to be better than when it was. And whenever we leave, we want it to be better than when it was. And we have literal tourists that are coming out here now from all over the world. There should be no reason why businesses are doing worse unless they are, unless their business is so boarded up that you don't know it's open. Like, I just went to the sushi spot, but this whole time I would have been there, but I didn't think it was open because it was so boarded up, and it doesn't need to be. But
I also want to echo the time here, and we have a golden opportunity to come up with a good solution where the protest will be preserved, and that nothing will be lost, and that's the goal. But the chief here has inserted a huge. It's very important that we work with the chief, because that will show you're not giving anything up. If we can decide on this solution now, and we just have a few minutes, it'll be a victory for the protest movement.
Yes.
So we're getting close to wrapping up, and so I would like everyone to have a chance for closing comments.
So can we get that list of the issues so that we can just address those at the end?
Yeah. So we have 7 minutes.
And we're working with the chief, the fire chief. In my opinion, so far he's earned my trust. So he's been there for the people, trying to make sure that it's just the best thing for the people in the city.
Everybody loves fire.
Yeah.
We only have a short period of time, so I want to make sure.
Last comments. Any last comments you have? Under 1 minute, please.
I don't have a ton of a closing statement. Just, I know a lot of people are going to look at this as, why are we giving up space? Why are we letting them take this back or whatever? And I don't look at it like that. I look at it as figuring out a smarter and safer way to keep this going. And from the security point of things, especially with the barricading the perimeter, if the perimeter was slightly smaller, it would be a lot easier to control and a lot easier to keep safe. We're having times a night where our barricades aren't very well staffed as is, and if somebody really wanted to come through, they would come through. So I think if they're going to offer us a butt ton of infrastructure to keep us safe and keep this going, that we should really take it.
How much are you talking about?
So we'll show you the plans, Raz. I just want to say that I'm looking forward to the next step. If we can get past this and agree on one of these options today, then we can start talking about the kind of infrastructure that the three of our departments can help to provide for you to make sure that you're safe, and that you can also to have the kind of infrastructure to facilitate protest, right? We've talked about some of those specific things, and we would like to get to that stage as the next talk.
I'll just say from what we see out here today is very different than what we also see at night, I think, and some of the feeling and the feeling of what a barrier is and who's outside right now and who's outside at night. And what we're showing here is what a sort of permanent, whatever that means, right? What a reduced footprint of that full extent is, but also the commitment to continue working to manage daytime, like growth in population during the daytime, or other ways to adjust over time. This isn't sort of a final, here's what there is, and we walk away, right? This is a beginning of an ongoing commitment.
Okay, just real quickly. I think that there's been a lot of information and misconception that the protest movement has taken over the streets. And we know that that's not true. So I think that working with the chief here and finding a solution will be viewed by the public, not as a loss, but actually as a gain. You'll be gaining, you're not losing anything. But the perception, and you're getting a bad rap, is that the protest movement has taken over this zone. That's not correct, okay? And you'll lose the message.
That's great. We should let other people.
Here. We got about 4 minutes.
I just want to say, yeah, thank you for these options. I think we've heard a lot of the issues, and I think it's fair for you guys to give us an opportunity to now evaluate these options, and maybe come up with a plan that works for all. So appreciate it. Continue conversation.
Yep.
Okay.
Looking at option 3, I feel like that's a good option to work off of. And I think for discussion purposes amongst ourselves, when we separate after this meeting, I'd like to know, how would you suggest we handle situations that are occurring between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m.? I want to remind you that we didn't ask the police to leave. We didn't ask the police to not service us. So we just would like a suggestion for that, please.
Closing thoughts, comments?
Anything? Closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just appreciate you guys, appreciate everyone coming together here. Yeah, and if all of us can meet up here, even in the lobby before we leave or something like that to talk, that would be super dope.
Closing thoughts? Closing thoughts?
I just appreciate being here in this moment. I hope you take to heart how to open up these spaces from now on, acknowledging being on Indigenous land and the protocol of asking Black, Indigenous, and POC voices to speak first in these spaces, regardless of whomever the other persons are representing.
Thank you for that. So, as we said when we started this conversation yesterday, it's an ongoing conversation that we've been having all week. Our goal is to get you information. You guys take the time you need to meet with your teams, and then we'll figure out the next steps to reconvene and then see where we are. You know, we're trying to ground this in public safety. We're trying to create a space that's safe for everyone so the message can continue to be heard. You know, the building is the thing, but the system, I think, is the goal, is what I heard. So thank you for taking the time today. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a young Black man doing all that I can to stand. Oh, but when I look around and I see what's being done to my kind, every day I'm being hunted as prey. My people don't want no trouble. We've had enough struggle. I just wanna live. God protect me. I just wanna live. I just wanna live.